From the streets of Melrose Park to the trading floor of the Merc, he's fought for every dollar he's ever earned. And now, with personal liberty and our system of capitalism under assault in America, he's here to seize back our rights from the government. With a cigar in one hand and a copy of the Declaration of Independence in the other, he's Sean Thompson. And this is the Sean Thompson Show.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag.
I have the luxury of having some of the best guests in radio, in my opinion. And every time I talk to my next guest, I'm reminded of why we're the youngest and the richest with the highest quality of life. We're the only one built on growth of the citizen economy, the private economy, not the government spending. All these countries that are thousands of years old, hundreds of years old, they all suck because they operate from top down. The government is good at doing nothing except enriching the corrupt players within government. My next guest knows this all too well, and he fights tirelessly as the president of the American Commitment and the Committee to Unleash Prosperity. Phil Kerpen, how are you?
I'm doing great, Sean. How are you?
Aggravated for just those reasons we talked about.
Well, I'm a little of that too. But, what are you going to do?
Well, I love what you do and how you articulate and then lead to a place, because there's always opportunity. And if we can, private sector grow, we can solve a major, major financial crime on the people called the American economy, which is steeped in the tenets of feudalism, which is why we adopted the number 2 plank of the Communist Manifesto as a tax system. It's to keep the working plebes forever and manipulate it so that the government gains more power and more money. But I can't help but notice one of your articles or one of the topics you tackled in an article was, and I find it astonishing, not just because it benefits me and it's something I picked out, but it really is staggering to know that $1 trillion of income was brought to one state in the country. It's mind-boggling, isn't it?
Yeah, that's we got a new study coming out under Unleash Prosperity, which is the group that I do on the side with Steve Moore and Art Laffer and Steve Forbes, sort of the super band, whatever you want to call it, of supply siders.
You are not only the best looking in that group,
but I appreciated the honor. I was honored.
Well, you're the best looking and the most athletic. You're the only one that could do 10 push-ups out of that whole group. Go ahead.
I'm by far the youngest, but yeah. We got a new study coming out. We did this study before on, the IRS puts out these numbers every year on interstate migration and the number of people that move from one state to another state and the amount of income that they had. But they only show you the amount of income that they had the year after they moved. And so we wanted to look at it a little bit differently and say, over the last 10 years, what's the total amount of income that people who moved, and then, in the years after they moved, that they stayed in their new state, and add all of that up. Because when someone moves from New York to Florida, it's not just 1 year of income that goes with them. It's every year after that, right?
Right.
So we did this version that's a little bit different from what other people have done before, because a lot of other people, including us, have just taken those numbers from IRS and added them up. But that doesn't really give you the real number. That gives you a much smaller number than the real number, because it only counts you 1 year that you move. But as long as you stay there, you should add every year. So we developed a method of estimating the total amount of income that's moved with interstate migration over the last 10 years, and we added it up. We looked at the winning states and the losing states, the top 10 and the bottom 10. All of that's going to be in the report. But just as a preview, we put out the number for Florida, and over the last 10 years, the amount of income that people who moved from other states to the state of Florida made was over $1 trillion. $1 trillion.
So
that's a million, 1,000 billion, however you want to think about it, $1 trillion of income of people who moved to the state of Florida in the last 10 years.
Well, the way I want to think about it is what it brings to the future prospects of everything from the quality of life in opening a retail store, in working any kind of job, the quality of the traffic, the quality of the roads, the quality of the schools, and more importantly, the forecast for the real estate values. And I say this to you being from an area that at one time was a fantastic area in all of those categories, but through years of corruption, neglect, and stupidity, it's not. I did a thing on my show yesterday where we talked, everybody, there are certain neighborhoods in Chicago. Ooh, the Gold Coast. Ooh, Lincoln Park. Ooh, the North Side. And the reality is, when you inflationally adjust money to the year 2008, every one of those neighborhoods that these imbeciles walk around and think they're hoity-toity is down 30%. 30% is big money in real estate pricing. And they're still pretending that it's not as bad. And the reason is it's the forecast of timestamp of money. Money is just money, but what it really is a timestamp of value. And if you're telling me that the progress, the future, is $1 trillion into one state, that shows you that secession by foot is something everyone should be aware of. Because if you don't take advantage of it, you're going to be left in feudalism, aren't you?
Well, we've seen this amazing experiment. We've got the 9 states with no state income tax, and it's not Florida's the top of the list, but Texas, Tennessee, Nevada, really all of the non-income tax states have been magnets for people to move into, with probably the exception of Washington State, which has been terrible with crime and a bunch of other things. But really, all the other non-income tax states have done very, very well. So it's been a real-time experiment. Of course, there are lots of other policies, but your Mayor Johnson just the other day, I think, put out a list of 39 tax hikes he wants. At some point, people just leave, and I think that's what you're seeing. That's why the real estate market hasn't even really kept up with inflation. Is you've got net population outflow, certainly of native-born Americans, and some of it, like the state of California, still has population growth, but it's all from international migration. Their domestic migration's been massively negative. And so,
right. And they also simultaneously have a massive expansion of welfare. Right, so congratulations, you got more people on welfare. That's not good for the economic future. And the reason I'm reflecting on this, Art Laffer, when he was a very young man, I remember him saying, I think it was when Reagan was leaving and Bush was coming in, he was moving to Tennessee. He's not from Tennessee, but he was moving there because it was a tax-free state with massive growth. And look at what has happened since 1988 to now. So why do they argue with geniuses? I don't understand it.
Yeah, Dr. Laffer was like Mr. California. I mean, he's from San Diego. He loves it there. I mean, I think, if California hadn't messed itself up so badly with bad policies, he never would have left. He loves it. He loved it there. But now he loves Nashville, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, people adapt. If you can save that kind of money, you can cut your personal income tax from, whatever the top rate now in California is, 12 or 13 to 0. Maybe the weather's not quite as nice. Maybe you don't have access to the beach, but you make up for it with all that money you save.
Yeah, the quality of your life. And when you think about the other topic I want to tackle that you talked about was the broken promises of the utopian health care and Obamacare drive down there. I mean, it's so nauseating to reflect it. I talk about it a lot, but it has to be talked about a lot. That is the acorn that grew into the socialist healthcare system we have, that destroyed not the quality, the quantity, all of the progress of healthcare. And yet people are afraid. I had on right before you, E.J. Antoni, we were discussing this. It is astonishing to me how used to absolute failure financially and practicality of the practice of healthcare. It sucks compared to before Obamacare. The quality of it, the death, the life expectancy, all of it. And yet the cost is 400% for the honest, healthy, decent American. And we're still going to entertain it in Washington, D.C. I believe the Republicans are going to break, and they're going to cover up that the health care insurance for healthy is $2,500 a month for a family of 4. It's ridiculous that we have this argument of continuing to fund stupidity and bankruptcy.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm glad that EJ's out doing interviews again, although I think it's a travesty that two so-called Republican senators opposed his nomination to run the Bureau of Labor Statistics because, they believed idiotic fake accusations against him, and they have no spine. And it's Collins and Murkowski, if anyone's wondering, where the
and they wouldn't even meet with him, right? They wouldn't even meet with him.
Ridiculous, embarrassing. They read in the Washington Post that he called AOC an idiot, and they said, "Oh no, he's sexist." But by the way, AOC is an idiot. So I mean, I don't know.
Aside from that, yes,
it's kind of like unbelievable. But yeah, no, I mean. Every single thing that Obamacare promised us was false. Every single thing was a lie. They said prices were going to go down. They've gone up. They said you're going to have more choice. You have less almost everywhere. They said, people forget this. The nationalization of student lending was actually in the Obamacare bill. They said they were going to make so much money on student lending and by nationalizing it, and that was going to. Then they immediately started running it at huge losses. Immediately. By the way, the U.S. government has the lowest cost of capital of any entity in the world. So if they can't run a loan portfolio and make money, that tells you something about how wildly incompetent they are, or they did it by choice. But, of course, the student loan portfolio has lost a ton of money. I mean, anything they said was going to happen, the opposite happened. You can keep your doctor, you can keep your plan. Everything they said, the opposite happened. And you're absolutely right that their answer to everything is, well, just throw more money at it. Throw more money at it. We'll just put it on the taxpayers tab. During COVID, Biden increased the Obamacare subsidies, so instead of taxpayers paying about 80% of all the premiums in Obamacare, taxpayers pay about 93%, and God forbid that should expire and go back to only quote unquote 80%. And they don't want to do anything to address the actual cost drivers. And by the way, every single thing in Obamacare caused more consolidation, less choice. You now have a couple of giant hospital systems that control everything in most cities. Some places only one. It's almost impossible to be an independent physician anymore because the federal government pays more if you're part of a hospital system than if you're on your own. And I think the quality of care has gone down a lot from when independent physicians were exercising their own judgment, and now they're part of these mega systems where there's tons of bureaucrats and administrators and all of this nonsense. And what do the Democrats do? They say, oh my God, if we don't just put it all on the taxpayers tab, then we Republicans want you to die. And you got a bunch of pollsters saying, oh, you guys need to cave. So I don't know. I don't know if they're going to. I hope they don't. But I think it's kind of pathetic.
Phil, in the very years ago, I used to love movies, old movies. And all the old movies, they would start out, and it was like the beginning of that negative hero where he was a gangster, but there was a good reason. And it used to be, well, my mother needs a surgery. My aunt needs a surgery. And you realize at the way in which costs have just skyrocketed since all of a sudden we stopped realizing as a species, nobody gets out alive. It's all death management in the first place. And it's like everything else where we are funding the people who are sick on purpose, the heroin addicts, the drug degenerates, the obese people who refuse to stop shoving food in their pie hole. So it all gets cooked in the mix. It's almost the perfect scam. I mean, it's either that or climate fear. They're 1 and 2 in the golden goose of government scams that we just throw more money at it, and it's all nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think spending more money's got us any quality improvements in healthcare. That's for sure. And when all of the money's coming from the government, or 93% as now in the Obamacare plan, there's no accountability for anything. And by the way they structured these subsidies is so poorly designed because you've now got, I think 40% of enrollees pay zero for their premiums. So, I mean, what do you care? It's like, you're not paying for it, someone else. There's no, and they sign millions of people up, by the way. There are millions of people in this country that would not pay $10 a week for an Obamacare plan. But if it's free, then someone will sign them up. Probably a broker, by the way, who makes a commission, and they don't even know or care or use the plan. But, if it's all on the taxpayers' dime, then fine. They go ahead and they sign them up. And then the Democrats say, oh, my God, these millions of people who might not even know they were signed up because some broker signed them up to make a commission, and they don't even file any claims, they're going to lose their coverage, and it's going to be terrible. And you're like, well, but with the regular subsidies, they could still get it for $10 a week, maybe $20 a week if they wanted it, which most of them don't care. So what are we doing here? Spending billions and billions, which, by the way, the $35 to $40 billion a year, it just goes directly to the insurance company. So I don't know when they're talking about tax, they call it a tax credit or there's no tax cut. It's just direct subsidies to the insurance company. They just get the money directly.
So you're doing that thing, and I the people who listen to me on a regular basis know what I'm going to say. But I'm going to say it to you because I could tell you, like my mother and my grandfather and my grandmother, you're a good person because you think that the objective of the scallywag, scoundrel, political whore is to succeed in a policy. So you said it's doing that bad thing, and this is what you have to bring to the round table of economic geniuses, from Forbes to Laffer to Stephen Moore and the rest of it. The goal of a Chicago Democrat, a moron like Obama, isn't for things to work. It isn't for things to work. It's for money to be misappropriated. So in the grand scheme of things, you get 40% of welfare suck-ons that pay nothing, can go to the doctor repeatedly, never pay a thing. It's perfect. And that's how you get a Democrat in perpetuity. You could elect a pickle jar if you tell 40% of the people you don't have to pay for health care. You just vote Democrat. I'm in. And that's the flaw. It's the rat character against the decent people who want an answer and a solution. And that's going to drag us down to the crux of things if we don't beat it here in Washington. And I'm not sure, but you're around these scallywags. Do we have enough people who understand how important it is to defeat the cover-up of the real cost of this takeover of our healthcare system?
Honestly, it could go either way right now. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I think there's a lot of pressure on Republicans to just say, oh, no, we're not the mean people who don't want to fund health care. Here's another.
I'll be surprised if they don't take it by the time this interview's over. I'll be surprised if they don't cave by the time we're done.
We'll see. I haven't yet, so we'll see. But it's let me put it this way. I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, boy,
I'll put it that way.
All right, well, when you're around the round table, would you bring it up that I called it and I wouldn't even take your money, even though I love to bet because I'm from Chicago. But the other thing I like is the scam of green energy. That Ivan path, that's fantastic. $2.7 billion. Barack Obama was going to build the solar in the middle of the Mojave. $2.7 billion. And all you did is fry birds up like you were at a chicken shack. It's insane.
By the way, if the economics of large-scale solar don't work in the middle of a desert, I'm pretty sure they're not going to work anywhere. So it's pretty amazing. Look, I mean, I think the green energy is one of the biggest scams out there. It's been unbelievable, the amount of money that's been put into it. And, the only places where it really works, even no matter how much subsidy you throw at it, the only places it's going to work are things that actually make sense to do. And, maybe off-grid locations, rooftop solar. Yeah, there's very limited cases where it makes sense, but this idea that you're going to replace grid power on any kind of scale with intermittent renewables, it's like you can build a huge amount of wind capacity and you can build a huge amount of solar capacity, but you got to build natural gas backup for whenever the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing, and if you have to build the natural gas backup, you might as well just build the natural gas plant. So, like, the logic of it doesn't work, and I think that's why it's been a disaster. And you look at what's happened in Europe, their electricity prices have gone completely insane through the roof. You look at what's now happening in the U.S., and we're kind of following their path. And the Democrats and the media are so shockingly dishonest that we're now dealing with these rising electricity prices because of all these green energy policies, and they're blaming the rising prices on Republicans ending energy policies, even though the repeals haven't even taken effect yet, but they're going to try to pin it on. They're going to try to pin it on the opposite of what caused it.
Steve Forbes, Art Laffer. I mean, these are brilliant guys, and I want you to shine because I love you. You've been a guest of mine for a long time. Bring up to him that this whole thing was started from Nelson Rockefeller. It's the perfect graft. It's the perfect scam. They're the ones that started the whole green energy movement. They started it all with Margaret Sanger after she wrote an expose about how their workers were dying on the oil fields. It's a fascinating reality of just how much you can mentally manipulate the American citizen through the fraud and the smears of good intention. And like you just said, if solar doesn't work in the Mojave, Milton Friedman was right. You put the government in charge of sand in a desert, and in 3 years they'll be out of sand. That's exactly what we're dealing with. So do they make you wear the sport coat with the padded elbows? You got to dress up and everything? How does it work? You got a tennis sweater on? How do you go to these meetings?
I'm not a big, professorial style guy myself, but
go.
It depends. People are usually just in suits, to be honest.
Yeah, jump in. Really, go in there with a pipe with the padded elbows. You really throw. Who's gonna mess with you? You'll kick everyone's ass. Phil Kerpen is the president of American Commitment. You can find it at AmericanCommitment.org. Thanks for always making time for me. I appreciate it. All
right, Sean. Have a good one.
You too. We'll be back with your calls and comments.
Make money, smoke cigars, and live free on The Sean Thompson Show on AM 560. The Answer.